Hey everybody, John here from the sports department, and we got a four-game slate. Hey, Lamau! We got ourselves a four-game slate here. It's good to be done with the two-game slates for the moment. We're gonna have some more. I'm confident, but at least we got some two-game, we got some four-game slates, and there's some good matchups on these slates. So let's talk about what we got going on here. The first one, we got Team WE minus 280 playing up against Victory 5 over in China. We haven't got to see Victory 5 in the regular season yet. WE picked up a win in their first match. WE maybe looked a little shaky in their first match. Zhumeng had a pretty bad series, uncharacteristically bad for him, which is, Zhumeng, I've said for a while, was maybe the best AD carry in the LPL, or right among the best AD carries in the LPL. And it's not hopeful that he had a tough first series there. But that said, I have a lot of hopes for this team. Despite Jumeng having kind of a mediocre series, Shanks actually had a very good series last time around, and Shanks was a question mark for me. So, there's some things going for Team WE, for sure. When we go over to Victory 5, just in case people haven't seen their roster yet, they're going to have LNG, who people would recognize from RNG last season. PP got in the bottom lane, who everybody's a big fan of, along with Y4, and then they have Wei Wei in the jungle and Mole in the mid lane. So not insanely different from their roster last year. It is different. They're no Sam D there anymore, and they've added Longji in the top lane. But this team should be pretty good. I could see a lot of people going to Victory 5 as an underdog today, just because WE looked a little shaky first time around, and PP God and Victory 5 in general are just beloved in the community. So I could definitely see people going that direction on this slate. For me, I have really high hopes for WE this season. I think WE is going to be a very good team, especially once they figure everything out with getting Breathe integrated. He's been just fantastic for the beginning of the season so far. If he maintains that level and Zhumeng gets back to playing well and Shanks performs the way he did in this first series, this is going to be a real chance for a title type team. So I like this matchup. I think Victory 5 makes a solid underdog play today. If you're looking for an underdog play, I do think we haven't got to see them yet. They have talent on the roster. They could definitely come out here and pick up a win against WE. But for my money, the WE money line is about right. I think WE is a pretty big favorite in the matchup. The second matchup of the day, LNG plus 375 up against IG minus 650. IG, we got to see the other day, put an absolute stomping out. The team was looking fantastic. Jun, their jungler, was just unbelievable in the first series, and if he maintains being unbelievable with Rookie and the Shy as the solo laners, this team's going to be good. I will caution, the bot lane looked bad in their first series. I was not at all impressed with the IG bot lane, Wink and Baolon. Baolon looked like he had taken a step back, and Wink looked like he had taken a step back, to be honest. But it was one series. Same with Zhumeng on WE. Give these guys another shot, because if Jun is firing on all cylinders and the Shy and Rookie did not look like they missed a beat, they were both playing out of their minds in that first series, then obviously IG is going to be a pretty tough team to beat. LNG, on the other hand, pretty much a completely turned around roster for anyone that hasn't seen them. Currently, Makuya in the top lane. We did just get some news today that they've hired Natural, who I think is almost certainly going to end up actually playing for this team. In the jungle is Tarzan, in the mid lane an Icon, and that is the most important thing for me, is that Tarzan Icon jungle mid duo. I talked about it a lot on the Gold Card podcast and stuff, but those two have the potential to be one of the best mid jungle duos in the league, and they have the potential to be a terrible mid jungle duo, and that is going to be, for me, the entire difference maker for this team, as far as whether or not this team ends up being good. They have Light and Ilwandi in the bot lane. We saw those guys last split. They were both acceptable. I was not, blown away by them, but I didn't think they were terrible either. So they're going to be highly outclassed in the top lane with Makuya against the Shy. The Tarzan Icon thing just depends. Was Zun's first series an overperformance, or is that what we're going to get from him? Tarzan and Icon, can they compete with Rookie and Zun? Probably not. If they can, this could easily go LNG's way. So I don't think LNG is a bad underdog play today either, as you can tell from the very limited data we have, but it kind of falls in line with what I would expect. IG with 20.5 kills per win so far, where WE has 16. So your expectation would be probably that this matchup ends up being the bloodier of the two matchups. Icon is also an extremely variant player, so I would expect that the winner of the LNG IG match is the bloodiest team on the slate would be my guess. So whether you're playing IG or taking a gamble on LNG, I would try to be getting 4 players from here if you can. Now, obviously, people are going to be aware of that, so picking up 4 players from this game also makes some sense. But as is normally the rules with the LPL LCK slates, if you're looking for something that's likely to happen, playing 4 players from the LPL games is where you want to be. Even if you're dipping your toe into the LCK pool for your second team, you're almost guaranteed going to want 4 players from the LPL. They just have significantly higher kill per wins and deaths per losses than the LCK will. Going over to the first LCK match of the season, GenG and KT Rolster. So GenG, once again, kind of like the LPL stats. I have their stats from last season here, other than KPW and DPL for the LPL. Other than that, I have their stats from last season, and we can just kind of talk about how their new rosters might change those stats one way or another. So GenG's running it back. So no change pretty much to what we should expect from them, except like the overall metagame has changed. So I think this is a slower or like lower kill metagame than what we had last year. Given that, I would expect the LCK teams to definitely be slower in it. But the LCK, GenG was fantastic last season. They were a definitive second or third best team in the league, and I think you're going to expect to see them there again. KT, I have a lot of hope for this the KT Rolster roster, but I don't think that they're going to be competing with GenG right out of the gate. Look at the KT roster for people that didn't see it. Doran in the top lane. We're probably going to see Blank in the jungle. Could be Bonnie. We're not 100% sure on that yet. UCal in the mid lane, and then Hybrid as the AD carry there, with Zeus as their support. Hybrid, kind of a touted prospect. This is a good roster. Like, I think KT can beat a lot of people. I'm not sure I trust them to come out and beat GenG right out of the gate. The money line feels minus 500 always feels a little heavy, but they should be a definitive favorite, I think. T1 versus HLE, the last matchup of the day. T1, the only real change to their roster, Keria now at their support, so they got the best support in the LCK to go with a team that was already extremely good. We're not sure who we're going to see in the jungle for them yet. Could be Cuz, that's who I have listed at the moment, but it could also be Elm. In the mid lane, we're not 100% sure if we're going to see Faker or Closer. Assuming they run back basically the same roster they were playing last year, plus Keria, I actually think they should probably be a bigger favorite over HLE than GenG is over KT. This seems a little out of whack. I would say T1 is significantly more likely to win. HLE's new roster, for anyone that hasn't seen it, is Deft and Chovy based. Chovy in the mid lane, Deft in the bottom lane, Vista at support. They were playing Arthur in the jungle at the Kespa Cup. I'm not sure if that's what they're going to continue to do. And then they had Dudu in the top lane for a good percentage of the Kespa Cup. So it's hard to say 100% on these rosters. We're going to have to get some news from somebody like Kenzie or on Weibo. But I don't really think I care who's playing for HLE. I think T1 is... I'm a pretty heavy lean on T1 in this one. And maybe the bigger point, I feel like, and where the projections are going to talk to us in a minute, but I feel like this is probably the matchup that you don't want any exposure to if you can help it. I'm guessing T1 HLE, outside of maybe the team slot, is probably the matchup you don't want to be involved with. Chovy Deft teams, usually not very aggressive. T1 teams, not usually very aggressive. I'm guessing we're going to see mostly a farm fest in this one. If you wanted to take a gamble on throwing some GenG KT in your rosters, that wouldn't bother me too much. I think that match has some upside potential, but it's mainly going to be the LPL followed by some GenG and KT. As far as ownerships for this slate, I would say it's going to be IG, WE, GenG, T1, and then probably for the underdogs, I don't think you're going to see a lot of HLE. I think for dogs, you're probably going to see Victory 5. I don't think you're going to see much of those guys at all. I think it's got to be Victory 5, LNG, HLE, KT maybe. It could be a KT HLE switch. Maybe it's KT and then HLE. That's probably more likely. So that would be my guess for ownership. I think V5 will definitely be the highest owned underdog. They give you the best money line number, which people are going to look at, and they're just a team that people really like. For me, I do think they're probably the most likely to upset, but I think I would rather mess around with LNG or KT. Comparison of ownership and upside as well, like 4 LNG is probably a pretty rare lineup, and if they win this matchup, that's going to be optimal almost for sure. Victory 5 would be my second choice of underdogs to play, and I think actually over KT just because of the potential bloodiness of this matchup. KT would be number 3, and then I think I'd probably stay away from HLE. I just don't think they're going to win, and even if they do, I don't know that they're going to be anywhere near the optimal. I could totally see HLE winning this matchup 2-0 and not outscoring, either one of the LPL teams or even coming close. So I think I would stick with that as far as ownership possibilities. Let's have a look at just the favorites real quick and see what the scoring looks like. I'm guessing Invictus is going to be where we want to be. They've got T1 scoring the highest. That's pretty crazy to me. Is it just because it's the Shy? Is that going to switch back to the LPL? Yeah, it goes back to the LPL for Jungle. Beishang and Zun. In the mid lane, Shanks. Rookie actually in third. IG has been a notoriously low kill participation team in the past, so I can see why they're not rating IG too highly, even though that matchup projects for a lot of kills. A lot of kills doesn't necessarily mean a lot of scoring if it's all solo kills by Rookie in the mid lane or solo kills by the Shy in the top lane. Sometimes, to give people an example who may not be as familiar with League, and sorry if I was quiet for most of this time, I just realized that my mic was not out. For people that aren't as familiar, there's let's say that the Baron is just coming up right now, and there's about to be a team fight. Both teams have huddled around the Baron, and we're getting ready to go here. Oftentimes, that will turn into, that's a 50-point fight for your team, right? Everybody on your team gets 4 assists or 5 assists, and there's kills mixed in. So, that's a huge number of points that the team that wins that fight will get. But that will all be avoided if Rookie just comes over a wall and kills the enemy jungler before the fight starts. Then the other team will often just back off, and then IG just takes the Baron for free. That's something that's very common in some teams' games. IG is a team that was kind of known for it DFS-wise. If Rookie just comes over the wall with a sweep play and kills the jungler instantly and then flashes back over the wall or whatever, that negates a 50-plus point fight that was about to happen for your team and makes it 3 points. Rookie got 1 kill, the rest of the team backs off, now there's no fight. So even though IG's in a high-scoring game here, it appears that the projections, and I trust the projections more than my initial thoughts, suggest that actually WE is where you would want to go heavier on WE. Now, if the underdogs were to win, let's see what it has to say about that scenario here. Who's the double? Oh. Sorry, I should have done this before I came over here. For some reason, there's a double in every thing here. I'm gonna have to look into that, but I think we can take a pretty good guess at who's playing. So, if the underdogs were to win, it looks like it really likes the top lane for the LCK teams. It feels like the top lane, and that makes sense if they play slower and it's more team fights. The top laner is more likely to be involved than if there's a lot of kills early in the game. But it has LNG in second place. In the jungle, LNG's at the top. In the mid lane, LNG, AD carry LNG, support LNG, which is kind of what I was going to show and kind of expecting. LNG, if they win, projecting to be the highest scoring team on the slate. Victory 5 mostly in second, some mix around. So generally speaking, I think LNG and V5 are probably your best 2 underdogs, even in terms of scoring. If we were looking at cash for tonight, I think the favorites tonight are big enough that I wouldn't take myself to T1, even though they're a very large favorite. GenG at minus 500 and IG at minus 650 makes the most sense. I said earlier that I actually think T1 should be a bigger favorite than GenG, and I think that's true, but I think the point upside of the GenG KT matchup makes me want to look at GenG and IG as my possibilities. So let's see what we can come up with for GenG and IG, what kind of cash lineup that creates. Let's see, GenG And IG gets us 575. It's a Rascal Captain with 4 GenG. What if we were to include WE? What if we did GenG WE? 598, so a pretty serious increase there, and I'm guessing we're going to see an increase again if we go to WE and IG. No. Because we had to downgrade captains in order to do that, that drops us to a 583. So it actually likes GenG WE, which is probably your riskiest set. So it's kind of a trade-off for you. You get to decide how you feel about it. The least risky, I think, is probably GenG IG, but that projects lower than the other two, so you can decide which level of risk you feel comfortable with. If you want to play it as safe as possible, I think GenG IG makes sense. If you're willing to add just a little bit more risk in there, then you can go WE IG, and if you want to go to the, I think GenG, honestly, GenG WE is just better, I think, than WE IG. WE versus GenG, or IG versus GenG. GenG is probably a little bit safer, actually. So I think I would recommend going one of these two, I think. If you want the upside, go GenG WE. If you want to be a little safer, GenG IG. I think that's probably the way to do this. As far as GPP lineups, what happens if we just pop the 3 favorites I'm willing to play in here and just optimize one? Do we get a 3-teamer? We get the Rascal Captain with 4 WE, is what it likes. 598 optimized, which is the same roster that it plays in cash. That's just its favorite lineup, so it's not that big of a fan of IG as far as scores for points per dollar here. Just looking at that to see if there was a way to change that around. Interesting. I mean, this is probably a lineup that's not going to be highly owned in GPPs. I could see playing this in GPPs. The fact that you can't get WE and IG with anything better than support captain, I think kind of makes them unplayable. I mean, you can enter the support captains, don't get me wrong. But I can't imagine that many people are playing this and not considering playing these. I'm alright with these support captains for sure. Can you do IG support captain? Just to check that. See if that's a thing. A 200 bump, a 200 bump, a 200 bump, and a 200 bump there. Yeah, you can do support captain either way. That's a lineup. Honestly, those are lineups that might not be played enough because people hate playing support captain. So I don't hate the idea of playing support captain and just playing WE and IG in GPPs. If those are by far the higher scoring matches, which I think they will be, there's some chance that this could work out. You can also do something. You can maybe make like a downgrade. Like, hold on, let me see. Let me throw GenG back in for a second. What happens? Could you get an upgraded captain if you change like one of these players to a GenG player? You're not saving that much money going to GenG. How cheap is T1? You could maybe take like, Carria in here, and then in return get like Zun captain? No, not even close. Those are the kinds of builds that I think you can look around at though, and see if there's some potential there. Like WE at 5,000 is definitely the best of the favorite team slots as far as value. So trying to switch around a couple of these people to try to get a better captain with 4 IG. Let's see, what if I lock Jun in as captain and just run it? What can it give me? It doesn't even give me a second Invictus player. You could downgrade the team slot. I'm on like a bit of a tangent here for what I'm actually doing, but I'm just interested. You could get Wink instead of Zhumeng if you wanted. You couldn't upgrade Carria. You could get Rookie. So you could at least get a couple IG players, but I don't think I would want to go for anything quite this crazy. What if I eliminated T1? Is there any way to eliminate T1 and get Jun captain? No, you can't do it. So I do think, you could set this up and go like, WE Invictus, WE GenG. Say that you want rookie captain. I don't think there may not be a way to get rookie captain at all. But what if I went to rookie captain and I went over here and just said, bam, just go for me. There you go. There's 10 rookie captain lineups involving only the favorites from today. So if you really want to take a gamble, you really think Invictus is going to go crazy, you could also try setting the minimums. I doubt you're going to be able to get... What if I set the minimums to like 2 Invictus here? Can it create any lineups with 2 Invictus with rookie captain? Oh, it's not listening to my things here. There's some lineups that have 2 Invictus at least. I'm guessing there's no way to get 3 Invictus since these are all 49k. But, there are some lineups out here that can mix these in if you wanted to take a gamble for the big GPPs. That's not the kind of lineups I recommend. But there's not a lot of options when it comes to like the 2 LPL favorites on this slate. So there's some options for you guys. There's my thoughts on ownership and the matchups. And I would just say good luck to us all tonight. Hopefully it's some big first prizes tonight, so hopefully one of us gets one. And I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.